Hey there, and welcome to today's deep dive. You guys sent us this article. Can mental health be negatively impacted by watching porn? And it's got us kind of curious.
Yeah, it's a question a lot of people are asking, and
Yeah.
we want to make sure we're
Yeah.
going beyond just like, is it good or bad?
Yeah.
Because it's honestly just way more complicated than that.
It's not that simple. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What we really want to explore with you is the how. Like, how is watching this stuff actually affecting your mental well-being?
Right.
And the research here is actually very interesting.
Yeah, so this article, it's from Fight the New Drug, and it starts off by talking about porn as like a coping mechanism.
Hmm.
And I mean, let's be real for a sec. Who hasn't used something to escape reality for a bit, you know? But
Absolutely.
here's the thing, they're saying that using porn this way could actually backfire when it comes to your mental health.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
it makes sense.
Yeah.
They're not just like making this up.
Yeah.
There's actually a growing amount of research and studies coming out suggesting that increased porn consumption is correlated with higher rates of things like depression, anxiety, stress, all that.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this vicious cycle.
Hmm.
You're turning to it to try and feel better in the moment,
Right.
but then it may actually end up contributing to the problem long term.
That's so interesting. It's like when you use food to cope with sadness,
Yeah,
yeah, you get that like instant gratification and you feel good, but then
exactly.
you end up feeling worse later.
Yeah.
And this article is saying porn can function the same way. It gives you that immediate reward, but it might be harming your mental health over time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting how the article then goes into self-esteem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret that those bodies and scenarios are pretty unrealistic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
And the research shows that constantly seeing these totally idealized images, it can really mess with your self-perception.
Totally.
And not even just for the person watching.
Okay.
It can impact their partner, too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. How does it affect the partner in the relationship?
But just imagine being constantly exposed to these, like, picture-perfect images of bodies and, sexual performance and all that.
Right.
It can really warp your perception of what's actually normal, what's achievable.
Yeah.
And that can lead to feeling insecure, feeling inadequate within the relationship.
Oh, wow.
The article mentioned some studies that actually found a correlation between using porn and having lower relationship satisfaction,
Hmm.
more conflict, even problems with something called romantic attachment.
Okay, now we're getting into the really interesting stuff. I've heard that term before, romantic attachment, but can you break that down for me? What does that actually mean, and how does it relate to porn use?
Yeah, so romantic attachment, it's basically like how we connect with our partners emotionally. Feeling secure, understood, valued in the relationship.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does watching porn affect that?
Well, some studies are suggesting that like really heavy porn use, it might actually make it tougher to form those deep, secure attachments with, real people.
Mm,
Because it's like you're getting all those feel-good chemicals, that dopamine rush, from this fantasy world of porn.
right.
So then it becomes kind of harder to connect on that same level with an actual person,
Yeah.
with all their flaws and imperfections.
Wow. Yeah, I get that. And what's crazy? The article even talks about porn being linked to loneliness.
Yeah.
It's almost ironic, right? Like you're looking for connection, trying to escape feeling alone,
Mhm.
but it might actually make you feel more isolated in the long run.
It's complicated,
Mm.
for sure. But you got to think about it. When you're constantly escaping into this world of like perfect relationships, instant gratification, no drama.
Right, none of the messy stuff of real life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It can make it way harder to actually deal with the ups and downs of real relationships,
Yeah.
of putting in the work to build that strong emotional bond.
That's so true. It's like almost craving that connection, but then trying to fill it with something that can't actually satisfy it.
Exactly. And it can turn into this cycle. You seek that temporary relief through porn.
Right.
And it potentially just delays the actual process of like dealing with loneliness, forming those real and meaningful connections.
Yeah. And it's not just about romantic relationships either,
Yeah.
right? I imagine this affects friendships, family, all kinds of relationships.
Absolutely. It touches every area of your life.
Mhm.
So yeah, using porn to try and escape loneliness, it might be doing the exact opposite of what you want.
Right, pushing people away instead of bringing them closer.
Exactly. And it all circles back to what we were talking about before with coping mechanisms.
Hmm.
Using porn is that way to avoid those tough emotions, whether it's loneliness, insecurity, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it might feel good temporarily,
In the moment, for sure.
but it's not actually getting to the root of the problem.
So instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on these deep emotional needs, are there healthier ways to deal with something like loneliness? That's the million-dollar question, right? What do you do instead? Like, if someone's listening to this and thinking, man, they're talking about me, I use this stuff too much, what can they do?
Well, it's going to look different for everybody.
Right.
But generally speaking, it starts with, acknowledging it, right?
Mm.
Admitting like, hey, I actually want deeper connections, or I am feeling lonely, or I do struggle with insecurity,
Yeah, just that awareness.
right? And from there, you can start exploring those like healthier ways to actually cope with those feelings and start to build the relationships that, let's be honest, we all crave, right?
So instead of escaping into this fantasy world that porn kind of offers, it's about what? Like diving headfirst into the real
Yeah,
world.
exactly. It sounds scary, I know.
Yeah.
But, join a club, volunteer, take a class, even just make a bigger effort to connect more deeply with the friends and family you already have.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's about putting yourself out there.
Vulnerability and all that. Yeah, and it takes work. Like it or not, relationships take effort.
For sure.
It's like that saying, connection is the cure for loneliness.
Uh,
But it does require something from us,
oh,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
We got to choose it, put in the effort to actually build those bridges instead of going for the quick fix that honestly leaves us feeling kind of empty afterward.
Exactly. And I think that's a great takeaway from our deep dive today.
Mm.
Being mindful of how we're using media,
Mm.
especially something as accessible as porn now.
It's everywhere, right?
Yeah, and asking yourself, is this actually serving me?
Mm-hmm.
Is it helping me become who I want to be? Or is it maybe holding me back from having those really meaningful relationships that deep down I really want?
This has been such a good conversation. I think we really went beyond just a surface level, you know? It's not about judging anybody. It's about really understanding how this stuff can affect us.
Right.
Our mental health, our relationships, just our overall well-being.
Exactly. And if there's one thing I want our listeners to take away from this, it's to be honest with yourself about how you're feeling, how you're using this stuff, and is it really serving you? Or is it maybe masking something deeper that needs your attention?
That's such a good point to end on. So if you're listening to this and something's resonating with you, you are not alone, okay?
Yeah, reach out.
It's okay to talk to someone, a friend, family, even a therapist if you need to. This deep dive may be over, but your journey to a healthier, more fulfilling life, that's just beginning. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.